Hi there, welcome. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Catherine. I make journals out of old books, and I just finished this one, and I thought you might enjoy looking through it with me. This book is a gift for a new friend, and so it won't be in my Etsy shop, but I hope you'll still enjoy looking through it. I'm going to try and be as thorough as I can in my descriptions as we go page by page. But if you follow along my channel here as I'm making my books, some of it may seem repetitive, and for that I apologize. But for some people, they like the flip throughs, and they join me for flip throughs, and that way they can learn what I've done, why I made the choice I made, or you know how it goes. So this sweet book is called Mischiefs, and we worked together through several books to see which one she liked. And initially, it had been chosen a much smaller book. Although it was about 3/4 of an inch thick, it was about the size of a Beatrix Potter book. And I quickly realized that it was just not going to contain everything that I had dreamed I wanted to put in this book. So, and I did go a little overboard, I must confess. But I was on a roll, and I was having so much fun because all these things that she loves, I love. And then it didn't help when Nancy sent me a goodie parcel of frog things. And, well, you'll see. So Four Little Mischiefs was written by a woman named Rosa Mulholland, who was apparently Irish. And it's been published many times, so please don't worry if you're concerned that this is a rare book that I have now taken apart. It's been published oodles of times. This particular copy, the publisher did not put a date inside it. However, they gave me a hint, which was nice. They put the address of their publishing house inside it, and I was able to look up the address and learned that in 1916 they moved to a different location. So that means the address that they published this book under means that this book was printed at some point prior to 1916. Just given my own experience of working with books and that, I'm guessing, I really think this book is probably 1890s. Just the condition of the paper, and the condition of the book in general, which is nice. I'm always happy if I can get 100 years. That's usually my happy goal. is a 100-year-old book, and anything more than that is icing on the cake. So let's take a look inside. I've put a ribbon around it for now because, as I said, I went a little bit crazy with putting some fun things in it. As ever, with my journals, I like as much as possible to be from repurposed sources. That means all the papers that I've used for the new pages that I put in, the new old pages. So whether it's the blank pages, whether it's pages out of other old books that I have taken apart, and I'm using all these laces, ribbons, stickers and pictures out of books. If possible, whenever possible, I like it to be repurposed so that my junk journals really are junk. There are sometimes a few things that have to be brand new. Glue needs to be new, ink needs to be new. Sometimes things like bulb pins and sometimes eyelets, you just can't get those at thrift stores. And in this case, I have an amazing book called The Forests, Fairies, and Fungi Sticker Anthology, and it's just such a beautiful book. And it really lent itself so nicely to go into this book. So I borrowed a few out of there and actually made the end papers from it as well, which you'll see. But otherwise, I would dare say, if I had to guesstimate, I'd dare say that this book is 96% junk, beautiful junk. So let's go and we'll take a look through Four Little Mischiefs together. It was a really plain cover, and it actually only had Four Little Mischiefs, Rosa Mulholland on it, on the cover, which I like because that gives me permission to go to town and really have fun and shabby chic the cover. And I put this beautiful little fairy on the front. Doesn't she look lovely? And she's got some copper brads holding her in place securely, some old laces framing around her. Here's some old bridal lace off of a wedding gown. And I've even used some of the mull that originally held the first text block in its place. And I've used the rest of it on the inside of the book. We'll see when we get to it. And I put some stickers up here. I love this one that says journal. And then I also put some on the back. There's Mr. Jeremy Fisher fishing to catch lunch for his friends who are coming over for a meal. And a stamp from France. And then, of course, my stamp with my signature and the year 2023 on the back. I've done some faux stitching on the spine, and I also added some gilding wax because, again, it was extremely plain as well, and it needed a little bit of zhuzhing up. Now, the stitching on the spine makes it look like it has 5 signatures in it, but it actually has 7 signatures. And you can do that when you do a hidden hollow back spine, which is what I did. So we'll take a look at that. Let me move our little ribbon. And you'll see here when I open it up that in the back here, the text block is suspended above the spine. And what that does is it allows for the book to open nicely so that the new owner can write in it or glue in it or collage in it or paint or draw or whatever it is the new owner wishes to do. So let's take a look and see it. The size, as I said, it's bigger than the original book. I talked her into it and she was wonderful and said, do your thing, which is nice. So it's approximately about 5 inches by approximately 7.5 by approximately a little bit more than 1.25 inches. And as I said, 7 signatures in it, and there's a total of 168 pages of varying sizes, which you know with my journals, I love all different kinds of sizes of pages when I make a journal. So when we open up inside, you'll see here this gorgeous paper that I told you I couldn't resist from, I'm dropping rocks. Does that surprise you? This is from that book that I was telling you about, and same with the end paper here. I just thought they were perfect for this book because I wanted this book to almost have a woodsy, mysterious kind of magical feel to it, and because it's the black background makes it seem like it's nighttime, and I just loved it. And I loved how it was just coincidence how these leaves matched the leaf that I had already chosen. Let's move this tool that I had already chosen to put on the first page. This book, the paper was not very good quality. That can be for any number of reasons. Sometimes the economy's not good and it was hard for publishers to make and get good quality paper. Sometimes the publisher was just starting out and didn't have much money to do that. Sometimes it's just the budget they worked with. And this poor old book, certainly these pages were mushy and would crack if you folded them. Instead of just folding, they would just crack. And the only way to make use of them, which we still did, is to glue them onto a more secure surface. So this is the first page of the book. I've just glued it onto a more secure surface so that we could still make use of it and know what the little book original first page looked like. And this was the company that I looked up. A little bit lower, it did have the address, and that's how I found out approximately how old it was. And this little frog, for the longest time, was here on my opening book, and then I realized he needed to go on the front cover. So he's looking up, I think, at this little worm that's on this leaf and thinking, that looks tasty. I added a little piece of tulle over top of the front. I think it gives it a little fairy-like quality. Added a bit of lace down here. And let's take a look inside. There's lots of pockets. There's lots of journaling space. Even though I did go kind of nuts with my stuff in here, I still left tons of room for writing for the new owner. And of course, you can't have a natural type journal and not have Edith Holden in it. So this is her from her smaller version of the Country Diary of an Edwardian Lady, the little version of it. And this is the blackbird nest with eggs. And I even saved the little word snippet down here. This is from a vintage collection from the National Museum of Canada, postcards. It's from the 1950s. Wherever possible, I'll write in pencil if I know the approximate year of a piece of paper. And that way, if the new owner doesn't like that, they can use a soft eraser and remove it. Or else, if they're like me and they like to know how old things are, they can just leave it there because it's just really, really pale. Same with like this page came out of an old ledger, and it was from the 1940s, and it has the letter K on right there, and I thought that was a very appropriate page to put on here. Here's the page that we've been talking about quite a bit as I've been making this book from my 10-year gardening journal. And I tea-dyed all these pages myself. The only thing I didn't tea-dye myself in this book is there's an envelope in the center that was avocado dyed by my friend Nancy from Wishes and Weeds. You're going to see a lot of wonderful, generous ephemera that was gifted to me from all the friends that I've made here in junk journal land. So I made use of a lot of fairies from a book called The Fairy Bower by Amelia Jane Murray, I believe her name was. It's a beautiful book. I love the looks of her fairies. They're so tiny and they're just sweet little things. Like, look how tiny she must be to be riding on a bumblebee and have a little flower as her hat. So I made her not only as a tab, but also as a tuck spot. And then that still leaves room for lots of journaling space here. And there's a receipt from the United Brotherhood of Carpenters and Joiners of America. And it's vintage because it has 19 there for in the date. So they were expecting to use it during the 1900s for that. And then this is just an offcut. I make use of offcuts rather than pitch them. I put a little bulb pin here. I had been saving this little charm. I buy necklaces and take them apart for my journals. And this was a little mushroom or toadstool. And I just thought, okay, this is the book that the toadstool needs to go in. And so there it is. And maybe she's flying over there to land on it. And there's lots of ruffly lace. It's vintage. There's lots of flat lace, and it is antique. This is a German book on how how to learn how to play the recorder. And I wrote on the other side of it, 1943, this book is from. And I made this little tab up here with some fabric I had. I believe that's Latin for whatever the plant it was that was on that page. And I just sewed on some buttons, and I did all this sewing by hand, and I did it on purpose, rather childlike. I wanted it to look childlike. This paper's from a children's school composition book. A page from tea-dyed page out of a steno book, and some stamping of some ink blops. This wonderful stuff that Tim Holtz makes that was gifted to me, and I just love it. Doesn't that look cool? More tea dyeing that I did. This is what I call sort of a double process tea dye. First I do the splashing with tea, I let it dry, and then I do the bath of the tea, and then let it dry, and then it usually goes into my press or under a whole stack of books. Here's the other side of that ledger, the accounts ledger, and I just love when you can include pages that still have the holes in the sides. And this was also on the same page that the Edith Holden pocket was on, so I wanted to make use of it. And the other side of the tulle, I went around the edge and used a pin and plucked away at it, the whole thing, to give it more of an ethereal feel to it. And this tea-dyed paper I did in a different way. I dipped it into the tea bath and then scrunched it up and let it dry in balls, and then ironed it out, and it really gives a nice marbled effect with the tea. This is from a huge book, Czech bank account reconciliation papers. This was leftovers from when I did that Edith Holden, those two Edith Holden biography books. And I had some leftover cheesecloth that I watercolor painted myself, and the colors were perfect for this book. And I used some gold embroidery floss. And because this book was from a ledger binder, it had holes in the side, so I just used those as the holes to do the stitching through. With this vintage butterfly book, it's a glued together text block rather than sewn together, so you have to find a way to join your pages together. And I sometimes like doing that with sari silk because it makes for a nice floppy folio. And here's some more of my funny little papers that I like to add in, and I like to purposefully make some of them a little cockeyed. I just think it adds character. This is, I guess it's antique now because it says 19, and then it would have been for the 1920s for a hand laundry in Paris, Ontario. And that was gifted. I used some faux cellophane tape to reinforce it because it wanted to crack when I folded it in half, and I was having none of that. This is from a vintage children's school reader book, and I swear I used that book when I was in school. I'm that old. And the leaf was on the page that this was on, so I cut it out and glued that word snippet on there. And here's a nice big space for journaling on. Again, I was able to save these really cool holes from the book that it would have gone into, and the little tip out. They're always fun. The other side of the cleaners, a little stamp with an acorn. I did a bit of stamping in here, and it wasn't too bad. I am one of the world's worst stampers. Fortunately, with junk journals, being a bad stamper is actually not a bad thing. A little whale tail tab here. The paper that I used is from the end papers from the Fairy Bower book. So I borrowed a word snippet that says garden, and there's a little bug there on that side. And it's there for really no reason except that it looks cute. And on this side, there's a little fairy. And here's some of the old flat lace that I sewed on. And wherever possible, for the full-size pages in this book, I did a torn edge just to give it, again, a bit more of a rough, woodsy look. And a mushroom or a toadstool, I don't know the difference. I am not a fungi expert. But I had a bit of fun making a collage here. With this beautiful little fairy who's having relaxing time in a hammock on looks like a rose bush. She was on the dust cover jacket for the Fairy Bower book. And I thought, she's got to go in. And so I backed her with some cardstock and inked it so there's journaling space here. And then I made a faux cabinet card. And I always like to imagine there's a story behind the book that I made. And maybe this is the young lady who was the little girl who found this old book and decided to make her own book out of it. And so I've just used a gold paper clip there to hold that closed so that she doesn't go anywhere. But the new owner can put her wherever they like. On this side is a tip out. And you'll see that in behind there's a little boy fairy there. And he's so cute and he looks like my grandson Bobby. I know I said it before, but it's worth saying again. And he's using a little morning glory as a horn to toot on. And I love his little wings. So cute. So he's sort of a little peekaboo window there, thanks to learning that from Anna, made by Grenath. Here's a tea-dyed folio from out of a Beatrix Potter birthday book that I have. A tea-dyed invoice, and it was too long, so I flipped it up to make pockets on the other side. So again, here's some pages out of the gardening diary and a little bit of Kate Greenaway here, and she's sort of trying to get away from this little bee here, I think. And here's a little ephemera given from a friend. And it's for the tulip tree. And there's room for journaling on the back. And this is out of a Birdwatcher's book. And I just loved how dramatic that raven looked. And I thought, that raven's got to go in. So it meant the whole folio had to go in. Here's a book. It was a little diary I found thrifting. So it came home and went into the tea bath. This came from a book on mushrooms that I have that is from 1901. I've written it there. Fortunately, the back was already blank, so all I had to do was sort of give it a little ink. I tore it with a ruler so that it looks a little bit rougher on purpose rather than cutting it with scissors. And I made a little tuck spot using an Edith Holden leaf. So there's green leaves and there's fall leaves. I think we cover all the seasons in this book. And again, more of the children's composition paper and a little more stamping there. I did a belly band here in lavender, and I made a faux postcard. I ordered a bundle of actual postcards from the late early 1800s from France. And they were so beautiful. I didn't have the heart to part with them, so I had them scanned, and but I still made it into a faux ephemera, I like to call it. And I think that turned out beautiful. And I love that it's a big castle. I think that makes it sort of magical. It'd be cool to go for a walk in the woods and come across an old castle. In this pocket, which is the other side of that invoice, there is the label from a box that had the music roll in it from a player piano. And I thought it was appropriate, first of all, because it was green, second of all, because it has a maple leaf on it, and third of all, because it says Toronto, Canada on it, which is where I was born. So I sort of snuck a little bit of me in there. And that, again, is thanks to Nancy. She said, would you like a piano roll? And I said, oh, I'd love one. And she handed me 3. I had a lot of leftover, especially frogs, and fussy cuts, and fairies. And I was stumped as to where to put them. And I thought, why should I put them in? So I'm sending them along so the new owner can have a bit of fun herself. So they're inside a glassine envelope. I actually should put this little frog in there, and he can go to his new home as well. So there we go. So he's in there. And maybe we should send along the 4 little mischiefs as well. And put you there. There we go. So other side of Beatrix Potter. Here's some more of that lace that came off of a wedding gown, and I tea-dyed it. It was pure white when I found it cut into shreds at a thrifting store. So someone was either mad at their wedding gown, or else it was just so old and so worn out. I know my wedding gown from 1979, oh, the glue went yellow. The lace was glued on. The sequins and the pearls, they used glue. They didn't sew them on. And it all went yellow. And ugh. So I have a feeling that's probably what happened with this. And some smart person said, well, let's not waste it. And I found the bags and happily brought them home and tea-dyed them. And then on the other side, I did a little bit of collaging. There's a stamp here from Malaysia that came from Happy Meal, and a little Victorian letter. On this side is a journaling card that I made from a book that I have found here in Canada, but it was from Australia. And it's from 1909, and it's got a frog and a little boy having a very serious chat there. So, and there's room for journaling on the back, and as you've been seeing all along, I somehow pulled it off, and there's lots of journaling room for the new owner to journal. Another whale tail tab. Wanted to add a bit more lavender into the book, a little more purple, and I was able to find, of course, fairies out of the Fairy Bower book, and a little bit of lace because I had a lot of leftover bits and pieces from doing the edges of these pages. Here's the page we worked on together with this one froggy asleep and one wicked froggy awake, going to wake him up and torment him. And that, again, is from the Australian book that was from 1909, so I've written it down here in pencil. And here's the little frog button that we sewed on together. And another maple leaf out of that children's reader book, and another word snippet that says leaf, which is rather, of course it's a leaf. This is a page out of one of my bullet journals from years gone by when I don't use up all the pages. I always like to start a new one each year, whether it's full or not, and I just use the extra pages and dye them. And I had fun inking around the edges of a lot of the pages with different colors than I usually use. And that worked out well because it's blue, and this page underneath is blue. And that's actual leaves inside the paper. Here's the envelope that Nancy made. This beautiful pink coloring is created by dyeing the paper with avocados. So, and Nancy, boy oh boy, she is the queen of doing lace imprints with her dyeing of papers. So, and I sewed that right into, oh, we got a little piece of paper there. There we go. I sewed that right into the center of this signature. And then inside is some actual genuine ephemera. This is the kind of thing that drugstores would give away for free. And I just thought she looked perfect with this because of the pink around her dress and the pink envelope and the butterfly and the woods, and it was just perfect. So she's in there. There's a little fairy that holds the envelope closed. Some more of this ledger book. These pages are huge. They're the size of this background that I use when I do my flip throughs, and I'm able to get several folios from just one sheet. Here again is another journaling card from that Australian book from 1909, and it's froggies riding on bicycles, which I think is cute. On this side, again, is a vintage, possibly antique receipt that was gifted to me. And this is from that Beatrix Potter birthday book. And again, like I said, I find that using sari silk for hinging really makes for a lovely floppy hinge, and it also makes for a fun-looking, grungy sewing opportunity to put some sewing in there. And again, just tons of room for journaling in there. And this little tuck spot where we've got the martini party going on down here with a toad and some mice, a little stamping, and another Edith from Edith's book. I'm drawing a blank. This came from a Boy's Own annual book from the 1880s, and this looks like it was some kind of a book plate that you could write your name on it and glue it inside of a book. Again, gifted to me from very generous people from around the world. More of the handmade paper that has grasses and leaves and flowers, petals in it. Here's the front page, the first page to Through the Looking Glass and what Alice found there. And I thought that was sort of appropriate because she landed in quite a magical place, and I'm hoping maybe this is kind of a magical place. A page from the reprint of Sears Roebuck catalog with ladies wearing their lovely spring bonnets. It's kind of crackly because even this book itself, even though it's a reprint, was reprinted in the 70s, so it's old itself. So I've used some faux cellophane tape to hold together some of the cracky spots. Again, lots of room for journaling on and tip outs and leaving the fun holes. A little bit of vellum there, and again, inking with different colors rather than just boring old brown that I usually lean towards, like here. This was one of the last little bits of that the page that I used from the Edith Holden, and why waste it? So it was from page 33, although I don't think this is page 33. Maybe I should have found which one's page 33 and put it on it, but I didn't. She's from one of the Girls' Own annual books from 1888, so I've written that down there. And I thought she belonged in a magical forest with all the bunnies and her beautiful dress that she's wearing, and that hairdo is lovely. A little bit of vintage rickrack here in lavender and some stamping. And then there's another bulb pin here with a little heart on it in a sort of a copper color. On this side is a receipt, and isn't that gorgeous? We don't get receipts like that nowadays. That's just beautiful. She's lovely reading a book there and the world, and that's beautiful. And we'll find out on the other side what year it's from because I forget. This one's from 1947 from the Beaver Lumber Company. This is from a guest book for a yacht book that I found again at a thrift store and thought that'd be great to put in junk journals. I love when they've got these sides with the holes still in them. It just makes for so much fun. And this is also from that little Boy's Own annual from the 1800s. And 1916. So that receipt was from 1916. Here's the tag that I made from the very first chapter of the book, Four Little Mischiefs. Again, like I said, I had to affix it to something stronger, otherwise the paper would have fallen apart. I did a little stamping down there, quite well, I might add. Made a pocket with some frogs in a pond, and then put a little fairy from the Fairy Bower book in it, and you can journal on the back as well of that. Or you can put other things in this pocket. That's the nice thing. Anything goes. Once a journal is yours, it's yours, and it's important to make it your own. I just added this little extra rusted paper clip here and put a little bit of ivory colored sari silk at the top. Over here are some tea cards of just little forest animals that I just thought were sweet, and the forest itself. So we used to get those in red rose tea here in Canada. And my parents and my grandparents kept me well stocked in these cards and in the Wade figurines because they drank nothing but red rose tea and the kettle was going all day long. I thought this was a nice way of being able to write over top of this Pitman shorthand page, which is from 1937. I've written it down here for the page. But this is from the Girls' Own Annual, and it's from 1888. And I love how these little birds are sitting on the sign that says, "Shooting prohibited on these grounds." And they are so happy about that. So I had to put those on there. And this glassine paper is so cool. I found it in an old photo album. And if you look at it carefully, it's got spider webs all over it. And I like that. So here's the little movable tab that you can put anywhere you like. And it's got the froggies, the jumping frogs, the leap frogs from that book that I recently found, the Hills album from the 1800s. And I wrote that on the back, so you'll be able to know. And this was from Nancy, the step-by-step from egg to frog. So I put some tea-dyed paper on the back, and it makes for a journaling spot. So I tucked that there. And then on this side, this is from a Butterfly Watchers book from 1929. So I just tucked that there where the little fairy is. And here is a vintage paper doily. And I love a spread from an old guest book. I tea-dyed that. And here's where I used the other side of the mull that originally was holding the first text block, the original text block, in place. And here's two little, they must be fairies because they're so tiny. They're out boating in walnut shells and a toad happily watching them from up above. And then just a little tab here that could be journaled on the back and front. And although I hand sewed it, I did poke the holes in ahead of time so that they're nicely spaced. I don't usually sew that neatly. A little fussy cutting of a flower and that little field mouse that I knew had to go in this book somewhere. And that's where that little mouse ended up, hiding underneath that flower. And then on this side, I had one little bit left from that check register page. I told you it was huge. So I made a little journaling spot. If you undo this bow, this can actually come right off. So if the new owner does not want that there, she can take it off and put it somewhere else or do what she will with it. But I thought that kind of looked cool. And again, some more of this beautifully gold-colored grass paper. And on this side, I made a pocket It's always nice to have a pocket at the beginning and at the end of a journal. So if you've got something quick that you think, oh, I'm going to put that in later, you got a pocket that's handy either at the front or the back. And so here we've got a little fairy relaxing on a feather. Didn't she look pretty? As a little tuck spot. And again, another photo, a colorized photo of some mushrooms. And this is from that mushroom book I have from 1901. And then if you're new to my channel, this is what I call a Two Nanas bookmark, and they always go along in with all of my journals. And I call it a Two Nanas bookmark because that's my mother and that's her mother. So she was my Nana, and then this beautiful lady here was Nana to my children. So I call it the Two Nanas bookmark. And one of these always goes in. And I even used some more of the end papers from the Fairy Bower book to make the backing for this bookmark that can go anywhere in the book. A little bit of lace along there. I felt like it needed just something to finish it. And these little owls that are sort of look like there's more to see somewhere out there in the woods. I love that they're looking out in that direction. And that is 4 Little Mischiefs. Now there's still more here that I just want to go through. I'm going to be sending along as well just a little bundle of some of the original papers so the new owner can maybe make some things if she wants out of them. And she'll see for herself how cracky and old and mushy this paper is. I loved this front one because it actually had the price. It says 29 cents on it. And but I wasn't sure what to do with it. And again, like I said, when I come across something that I think is really cool, but I'm not quite sure what to do with it, I'd rather leave it and let the new owner decide what they'd like to do with it. So, and then there's still some leftover paper, so I'm sending that along. And as well, Nancy sent so many wonderful frog things that I'm sending some of those along too, so that the new owner can maybe make some tags, or maybe she's got other things she would like to do with those frog things. And I've clipped them together, and there's the other frog button. So maybe she might want to put that on a sweater or something. You never know. Or somewhere back into the book. So this will be going along with the book. And then, as I said, the new owner of this book, she is nuts about frogs. And I realized that rather than cutting this book up, it deserved to go to someone who's nuts about frogs, because the artwork in it is so delightful. Frogs and the ballet. And as you can see here in the artwork, there's all the musicians in the orchestra pit. They're frogs. The people viewing it are frogs. And inside, the artwork is just so delightful. These ballet dancers, it's just so sweet. Look at that. Is that gorgeous? Arabesque. When I found this book, I knew I had to have it, but I didn't know what was going to come of it. And now I know it's going on to the right owner. So Frogs and the Ballet will be going along with 4 Little Mischiefs to their new home. And I hope the new owner enjoys these very much. So thanks for joining me today for this flip through. I hope you enjoyed it. And we'll get together soon. I think I'm going to get started on my Christmas journals now, and that way they'll be ready to go in time for, let's get you turned around, in time to get them sold and on their way for Christmas. There we go. There's our toadstool. So probably the next time we get together, I'm probably going to be hauling out the holly. Take care. Have a great rest of your day. I hope that you and your loved ones are all safe and sound. And we'll talk soon. Bye.